I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 6. It was 1998. I think I was in first grade. And it was actually my teacher that told my parents, hey, we think she might need to, be evaluated. I'm so thankful to them that they did that. I was able to get assistance. And looking back on my childhood report cards, it definitely, like, even as early as age 3, it would say things like, Braelyn has a lot of friends and is really great at socializing, has a hard time when it comes to working independently. I'm like, okay, it all makes sense. My life as a child with ADHD is funny because I don't, as a kid, remember having ADHD at all. What I remember from having ADHD as a child is medication. I remember having to step outside of the line when I was getting lunch and run to the nurse's office and take a pill and then go get back with my friends in line. And that always stressed me out because we had to get in line, wash our hands, and then you'd stand in line to get your lunch. And I always was worried my friends were gonna get inside the cafeteria and I wouldn't be able to cut in line. So that's what I remember as a kid is I need to run to the nurse's office and take my medication and don't go inside and, leave me out here. It's interesting because I don't remember a whole ton outside of medication. I also remember medication making me sick, my stomach upset. My mom would let me skip school sometimes if I was trying a bunch of different meds. And most of the memories, waiting to wash my hands at lunch was probably first and second and third grade. After that, it kind of just became I would try new meds and stuff would work or it wouldn't work, but I wasn't fully aware enough to really even know what it meant to have ADHD. I knew that I had a lot of meltdowns, that coming home from school was really hard because I would be on medication and then I would have these come downs and I would have anger outbursts and stuff like that. But honestly, my childhood as a whole, I would say, was very great. My parents were very supportive. I was the youngest of 3 girls, so I had 2 older sisters and they were quite a bit older than me. So we didn't always get along, but from what I remember, my childhood was very fun. I do remember a lot of meltdowns though as a kid. My sisters will say going to restaurants with you was really hard because you would just freak out sometimes, or car rides I remember were really hard. We live in Arizona, so I'd always be so hot and dying in the car, help me get the fan. A lot of temperature regulation stuff. I don't really remember, ADHD for me wasn't a huge player in my childhood that I can remember. It was just a little side thing. Once I got to high school, and I had always heard when you get to high school, it's going to be so much harder and it's real and you're going to struggle. But the thing is, I went to public school in Arizona. I don't know if you know, but we rank 49th or 50th. So my high school classes were not hard. So much so that my counselor actually made my parents put me into honors classes, not because I was a great student, but because I just needed a little bit extra challenge. Because my classes were absolutely not difficult. What I remember from medication in high school was that if I didn't take it, if I skipped my medication on accident, I would have the most balls to the walls hyperactive day. I would be bouncing off the walls, laughing till I was crying, just kind of it felt all of the energy that maybe normally wanted to exit my body on a regular day was pent up because of the medication. And if I skipped a day, it was letting the floodgates loose. It was just crazy. I do remember that it being really fun and kind of thinking to myself oh, haha, if I want to have a silly fun day, I can skip my medication, which actually is part of the reason why I was maybe I don't want to take this all the time anymore, because I'm really fun when I'm not on meds and I'm not fun when I'm on meds. And looking back, I think the meds just completely took away my ability to mask. I was just deadpan all the time, but it also really just made me feel I didn't care about anything. It really did numb me down. But I will say the hardest part of school was sitting in a room with fluorescent lights and no autonomy to go to the bathroom or do whatever you wanted. That was the hardest part. I loved the socializing. I had a lot of friends. The difficulty was sitting down, sitting still, sitting in a certain way, not being able to get up and walk around. So really, looking back, I would have liked to have a ton of different accommodations. And if I ever have kids, I don't know if I would put them into public school. It just teaches you how to sit down, be quiet, listen. And I think as an ADHD individual, our strengths in the the world are so much more than sit down, quiet, and listen. Our strengths are like to be innovators, disruptors, and do all of this cool stuff. I think it's especially important for ADHD kids not to be taught how to just sit still, because not only is that terrible and so hard, like my body would just feel like it was screaming every day, to like get out. We are meant for more than just sit and obey. When I went to college, I knew at that point that I didn't want to be on meds forever, but I really had this belief that I could not function without them because I was on medication when I got diagnosed, age 6, to, fast forward, age 18 in college as a freshman, had been on meds the whole time except for like taking summers off. So when I got to college, I had this belief that I couldn't function without them, and I dealt with a really bad depression my freshman year. I kind of had like the weight of everything. It was almost like I was living in a bubble before, and the weight of everything came crashing down, and I was like, what even is ADHD? Like, I don't like this. I was making a lot of mistakes. I was letting a lot of people down. My self-esteem was very low. I was just feeling like, oh my God, this sucks. I hate this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. So I got super depressed, which led me to going to a psychiatrist for the first time. Funny enough, my general practitioner used to be the one who would supply my ADHD meds. If you currently see a GP for meds, you know how they're not good sometimes. So I never really had been even asked any questions about, are the meds working? Da-da-da-da-da. So meeting with a psychiatrist for the first time, I'm sitting down with her, I'm kind of telling her everything that's going on, and she's like, sounds like you're depressed. So she put me on antidepressants, which was very helpful, changed my medication over, and after about a year, things kind of got better. I started to do more in college. I got involved in a sorority. I was running an internship. I was working. I was paying for my own apartment. I was like, cool, this is great. Everything is, the meds are working. The depression is gone. Everything is just like going how it should be. I was having fun in college and enjoying myself. And then I got extremely burnt out because I was in a sorority, working a job, running an internship. I was doing all of these things, and I would be on campus from like 7 a.m. until like 8 or 9 p.m., just totally exhausted, no time to relax, completely burnt out. So finished off college very slowly, took like 3 years after my sophomore year. I graduated in 5 years, 5.5 even, to like figure it out. I switched to an art major. I was just like, we're just going to slowly figure out how to get out of college and graduate and get a degree. And I said to myself, when I'm done with college, I'm getting off meds. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm just going to be done. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get a job that doesn't require me to be on meds, and I'm just going to figure it out because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know like what my personality was outside of meds. And that was huge for me, and I wanted to go on that self-discovery journey. When I graduated college, I was extremely blessed, privileged, fortunate to have a job waiting for me out of college. My husband and I, boyfriend at the time, both worked for Uber, and we did in-person driver support. If you were an Uber driver and you had a problem, you would come and talk to us in person. That job was fantastic for no meds because it was a customer service job. So people would come in, they're sitting in front of me, I help them, okay, I'm looking up your problem, the problem's fixed. They leave, next person please. I never had to think about it when I went home, and because I'm very good with like people and numbers and organization, it was just like, I really loved the customer service aspect. I love helping people. So right off the bat, I was like, oh, life without meds. I can do this. This is a great job. I think this is fun. I was also fortunate enough at the time, my parents bought a commercial building and decided that my mom and I were going to start a business together. So I opened a co-working space with my mom because in college I had worked for a co-working space and I kind of had experience in it. So we decided to tag team on this business together. And that also was an extremely good job for somebody with ADHD. And I still to this day will say, if you have ADHD and you have co-working spaces in your area, go see if they need help, because you're interacting with a ton of different people. You never know what your day is going to look like. It could be totally different. Part of your day is just talking to people, getting to know them, helping them. It's kind of like managing a home that's not your home. All these different moving parts and pieces. It's very fun. I wore a ton of different hats, and I was like, wow, I'm like really good at this, and this is great. I was very self-conscious though still. The time I was working with an ADHD coach, and I think I was like 23, running a co-working space. I graduated college not that long ago, working with an ADHD coach because I was like, I don't know that much about business. And although my mom was my partner, she was running a different business. She was like all over the place, and I just felt like I needed a little help. Hired an ADHD coach, and that also was a fantastic way to get tips and systems, because my tips and systems my whole life with my ADHD ADHD was meds. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know about planners and organization and systems and tools and all this stuff. This ADHD coach kind of introduced me to the world of like, here's how you manage your ADHD in a way that is not medication. And here's all these things you can do, reward systems and making sure your desk is really colorful. And so when you sit down to work, it lights you up, and ways to hack and give you more dopamine and stuff. That was one of the most transformative experiences I had, was working with that coach. And she just really helped me feel confident in myself, confident in my business. It was a great experience. So things were going very well. A few years in, I started to get depressed and burnt out again, and just really kind of like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I, was just going through the motions. I wasn't taking care of myself. I would say it was depression, but I didn't get treated for depression this time. I kind of just wrote it out because it was COVID times. I was like, we're just gonna ride the wave and see what happens. And it was a whirlwind. I think I was teetering back and forth between like depression and burnout for like probably 2 years during COVID, while I was kind of trying to like manage making content online and manage streaming. It was a time where I really like pulled back and rested a lot. And luckily the co-working space was something that I could kind of do on autopilot. I wasn't the best employee. I wasn't taking pride in every day in my actions, but I was keeping it afloat and running the business the best way that I could with the tools that I had at the time. That brings us to today. I still work at the co-working space. I healed my burnout. I'm really bad with like dates and timelines and stuff, so I'm going to say it was like a year or two ago, but honestly, I don't know at this moment. I'd have to like physically look it up. But healed my burnout. Because I found Notion and I got organized, I decided to start some businesses, and now I'm like doing really well. I'm thriving. I love my job. I love my work. I love everything that I do. The co-working space is kind of the foundation that allows me to do all of these other things, which is really fantastic. We've expanded to a second office location too, so everything is going really well. I'm really excited and happy because for a long time it was chaos, and it was I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't love working, and I felt really lazy, and I couldn't be productive, and just like and I kind of think that ADHD people have to go through this journey that I went through, where you like, it's almost like grieving, like the stages of grief, right? First you're kind of like denial, and you're like, this sucks, I hate this, I don't want this, I don't want this to be my life. And over time you move to a point where you're accepted yourself, and then I think after that you can find ways to make your life work for you so that you can thrive too. Because I used to think literally that ADHD people like couldn't do so many jobs until literally I read a thread on Reddit that was like, ADHD people, what jobs do you do? And it was like every single job you could think of: lawyers, doctors, like all this important stuff, politicians, etc. And that really made me realize we can do anything. You can literally do anything. And the most important thing is to find out, what do you want to do? What lights you up inside? What makes you feel excited? What are you good at that just makes you feel like, yes, like this is my thing? And don't worry if it takes you a really long time to get there. I'll be 32 this year, and I'm like just figuring this stuff out. And I was diagnosed as a kid, so I had a way huger privilege, leg up, early start, whatever you want to call it, from most people. So give yourself some grace and show yourself some kindness, because living with ADHD is not easy. I do think that there are some things that can present itself as strengths if you are fully supported, but for a lot of people it is very debilitating, and I still struggle with all kinds of stuff literally on a daily basis. But I do say I'm thriving with ADHD because I think that there are ways that we can really maximize, seems like the wrong word, but just like we can thrive. There are ways that we can thrive. We can set ourselves up for success. It's just going to look completely different than anybody else's sense of success, of what that looks like. Yours is going to look very different, but as long as it matters to you, that's all that matters. If you are somebody who is just getting diagnosed, keep fighting. Keep being yourself. Stand up for yourself and find your voice. Know that you can do anything if you want it badly enough. Make your life work for your ADHD. I know you might not know how right now, but as long as you have a small focus on, I will make my life work for my ADHD, then you will, and you will do great. Be your own cheerleader, and do not let anybody dull your sparkle. Because if there's one thing ADHD people are, it is sparkly, okay? And do not let anybody else dull your sparkle. You deserve to be able to be yourself and to flourish and to thrive into whatever you want to thrive into. Know that you are worth so much, and that you are going to bring so much worth to the world just by being yourself. Thanks for listening. Bye, friends.